So I got a bit of momentum and I carried on recording after I finished making last week's video. That's why I'm wearing the same clothes and I still sound like I've got a cold, because I do. But I suppose this means that I should say Happy Christmas Eve. It's very exciting scheduling a video to be released in the future. It makes me feel like a proper YouTuber. It's very exciting. So anyway, my early Christmas present to you is the two solutions to the puzzles that I linked but then didn't walk through 2 weeks ago. Killer on the Orient Express 3 and Killer on the Orient Express. Bit of a tongue twister there. 2. And I will do them in that order. If you want a full discussion of the rule set and its possibilities as well as its limitations, I do highly recommend checking out that video from 2 weeks ago. It's a lot of content, it's very long, but it's all good content if I do say so myself. It's worth a watch, and those other puzzles as well that are also in this rule set. There's 3 others from that video. They're all good fun to do. I will still go through the rule set in this video though, but I won't do it nearly as in depth as 2 weeks ago, because I did over explain it a little bit 2 weeks ago. So what are the rules? Normal Sudoku rules apply, so every row and column and 3x3 box must include the digits 1 to 9 exactly once each. Now, here's the bit that you'll recognise from 2 weeks ago. Draw a train of orthogonally connected, non-looping cells that can touch itself diagonally but not orthogonally. So if you've ever done any kind of snake puzzles before, it's something like this. So you can do that because these two bits of the train are touching diagonally, but they are not touching orthogonally. So if we did that, that would break. That's not valid for this train. Its carriages are 2-cell killer cages. The first carriage sums to 3, and thereafter each carriage's sum increases by 1 until the last carriage, which sums to 17. So let's draw something like what we just had. Oh, that breaks. But something like this. And let's make that green. So then this would be a 2-cell killer cage that sums to 3. So those 2 digits add up to 3. Then those 2 digits add up to 4 and 5 and 6, all the way up to 17 at the other end of the train. Or it could be the other way around. Maybe it's 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not saying that this is the train, but if this was the train, then that would be how we would fill in the digits on that train. Alright, circled cells are not on the train. A circled digit shows how many train cells neighbour that circle orthogonally and diagonally. So what that means is that this is not on the train, but of the 8 surrounding cells, exactly 3 cells are on the train. The ones that don't have a number in, well, it's up to you either to work out what that number is and then draw that number of train cells around it, or draw a number of train cells around it and based on that fill in the number. Good, so those are the rules for that one, and the rules for the next one, Killer on the Orient Express 2. It's the same thing about the train, but the square cells mean something slightly different. A square digit X indicates that there are X cells on the train in either the same row or the same column as that square, or both. So this 4, for example, oh no, I've gone for this 4, haven't I, in row 5, column 9, indicates that either that there are 4 train cells in row 5, so 4 of those, exactly 4 of those are train cells, or there are exactly 4 train cells in column 9. It's one or the other, or both. So as long as it's satisfied in either the row or the column, then the other one out of row or column can be anything, including 4 potentially, or 0, or 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 8, I suppose, would be the limit, because we can't fit any more than 8 train cells in that row. Alright, so let's go through these solutions. Now I must admit I haven't actually practiced doing these solutions for about a week or so. So do excuse any extra thinking time that I take. But hopefully we can get through these without too much post-editing, as we had to do last week. But anyway, no, sorry, not last week, the week before last. I'm not going to post-edit that, don't worry. Right, so here we go. The first thing that you might notice is that there's a 7 here, and it's only got 7 neighbouring cells that aren't circles, so they must all be in the train. And there's a 6 here, and it's only got 6 neighbouring cells that aren't circles, so they must all be in the train. There is a, in fact, well, can the train end in here? Now, I did put in the video 2 weeks ago, I did put a section where I kind of discussed general properties about the train. So I won't go through all of that again in as much detail, but I will use one of the properties now, which is that we know that the last 4 digits of the train cannot all be in the same box, or row or column, because let's say this was the low end, then this would be a 2-cell carriage adding up to 3, which has to be 1 and 2, and this would be a 2-cell carriage adding up to 4, which has to be 1 and 3, so the ones clash. There's more stuff that we can do. We can say that the second carriage and the third carriage can't all see each other in the same row or column or box, and other things like that. I think the third, fourth and fifth can't all see each other within the same row or column or box as well. So yes, that can't happen. So what that means is that this can't be an end, this also can't be an end, so they both have to come out like that. Let's just go through and paint all of these grey, I think is the convention that I've gone with. And actually there's more we can do with this 5. So at the moment we've got 6 cells around the 5 that could potentially be train cells, but what if all 4 of these were train cells? Well, then we'd have the last 4 cells on the train all seeing each other, and as we've just discussed, that can't happen. So that does not happen, and there's no other way to make that a train cell, so it can't be a train cell. So those all must be train cells. That obviously must be an end, and actually that can't turn back on itself, so that is the other end. So we've got both of our ends of the train. This must come out like that, this must come out like that, it can't turn back on itself. This also can't turn back on itself. So this now must come out like that. And we are doing well. That now must be a 1. Oh no, sorry, we don't know that yet, do we? I mean, it can't come into here and end because we've already got the 2 ends of the train, and it can't come into here and escape again. So yeah, it can't go into here. So yes, we do know at this stage that that is indeed a 1. This can't turn back on itself, so that's grey. That can't turn back on itself, so that's grey. Right. So that has to escape this way. What else do we know? We've now got 6 cells here. So, sorry, 5 out of the 6. So one of these is in the train and one of them is not. Okay, if we did this, would that be okay? I think that would be okay. Let's just hold on a second. So, how many cells do we have on the train now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So, as we discussed in the general properties section of 2 weeks ago, we need 30 in total. It's pretty easy to work out. We've got killer cages ranging from 3 up to 17 inclusive, so that's 15 different killer cages, each with 2 cells, so that's 30 in total. So we need another 8 cells, so let's say we go there as directly as possible, so let's say like that and like that. That's as directly as we can possibly get, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 more, so we have no wiggle room. We can't kind of go into here and back out again, so those are all gone. And we can't go up into this section and back out again or anything like that. So those are all gone. We can't go back into either of these columns. We have to go directly over here. I've painted them as going that way and that way. I hope that's obvious. We can't go like that because that then cuts these two branches off from each other. So this branch has to connect to that branch has to connect to that branch. Okay, now this 3, can it be that one in the train and not that one? No, because then it would have to do something like that and turn back on itself and then waste certain train cells. We have to go directly. It has to go like that. It has to. So there's no other way. So that's not in, which then tells us that to complete this 6, we need this to be in. So those aren't in anymore. So it needs to escape like this. Now we can have a look. Oh, in fact, this 3 is now finished, so that's not in. So it has to escape like this. Now we can have a look at. Oh yes, well it's not going to go like that, is it? Because we can't connect those two up. So that isn't in. That has to go down like that. That has to go up like that. In order to complete the 6, we now need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that needs to be in. Those are all out. And now it's just one of those two. And you can kind of see, yes, I designed this to have a certain pattern, so you can probably guess that it's going to be that one, but I don't think we have any evidence to support that just yet. But we can probably make that evidence very shortly. But let's first look at the ends of the train. Well, at this circle in particular. What is that going to be? It's seeing 3 cells, 3 train cells, so it's a 3. Simple as that. So, can this be the low end? Well, obviously it can't, because it can't be a 1 and a 2, and also that can't be a 1 and a 3, because there's just so many reasons why that can't be the low end. So this is the low end, that's a 1 and a 2, that means that's a 1 and a 3 to add up to 4. These have to add up to 5 now, but let's just go back. These have to add up to 17, so they have to be 8 and 9. These add up to 16, so they have to be 7 and 9. These add up to, in fact, we can fill that in straight away because we can't have a 9 in there. It has to be like that. These add up to 15 without using a 6 or a 9, so they're 7 and 8. These add up to 14 without using a 6, so they are 5 and 9. These add up to 13, and we can't quite get that just yet. But we will come back to it in due course. These add up to 5, we said, so that's got to be the 2 or the 4, and that's got to be the 1 or the 3, because that can't be the odd number. Then this and something else adds up to 6. These add up to 7, and we don't yet know what they're going to be. These add up to 8. Now here's a good bit. These add up to 9, then 10, then 11. So 11 plus 10 plus 9 equals 30. Plus 7 plus 6, that's 43. We know that the box in total adds up to 45 because it's the digits 1 to 9, exactly once each. So 43 plus something equals 45. It has to be a 2. Now we just said that those two add up to 8, so that needs to be a 6. Now, if that was a train cell, then that would see exactly 2 cells. 2 train cells, so that would have to be a 2. It's not going to be a 2 anymore, so it's not there, it must be there. And I think there are plenty of other ways that we could have proved that, probably a long time ago, but yes, we do indeed have that pattern that, yes, I did deliberately design to be like that. Okay, so we now know that these, in fact we can just fill these in. That's a 3 and that's a 1, because this sees 3 train cells and that sees 1. So these add up to 7, and they can't be 1 and 6 or 3 and 4, so they must be 2 and 5. These add up to 6, and they can't have a 5 in them, so it must be 2 and 4. There's a 5 either there or there, and there's a 5 either there or there. So in here, the 5 must go there. In fact, we know that it's a 4. It's the only number we haven't accounted for left in the box. That 1 tells us that that's a 3 and that's a 2. There is a 4 there or there. There's also a 4 there. So in this box, it must go here. This needs to be a 1, 7 and 8. But those two add up to 13. So that's not going to be a 1 and a 12. It's going to be a 7 and a 6. Oh, no, it's not. So it's got to be an 8. and a 5. So this is a 1-7 pair now, but that 1 tells us which way round it is. These add up to 12, but they are not 5 and 7, and they're not 4 and 8 either, so they must be 3 and 9. Let's look into here. So this, what should we look at first? Let's look at the 11, because it can't be a 7 and 4, or a 6 and 5, or a 2 and 9, so it must be a 3 and 8. The 10 can't be a 2 and 8, 3 and 7, or 4 and 6, so it must be 1 and 9, and the 9 is the only 2 digits left, 4 and 5. In fact, we know which way round, and we know which way round the 1 and the 9 are. That's sorted. It's all starting to fall apart now. This needs 4, 7, 8, and 9, and the 4 tells us that that's going to be there, which resolves this for us. This is a 7 or 8 in that row, and this is 7, 8, and 9, but that's not a 7, and that's not an 8. In fact, that 7 has been looking at that for ages, so the 8 now tells us that's a 9, that's a 7, that's an 8. We now need 2, 3, and 6 in there, but the 2 and the 6 tells us that's a 3. And that resolves that 1, 3 just here. This 9 resolves this 9, 5, 5, 2. This is now 2, 4, and 6. And the 6 has to go there, and the 4 has to go there, and that's a 2. And what else have we got? There's a 1, not there, not there, and not there, so it's there. Should we look at the 7? No, that's a daft one to look at. What about the 6? The 6 has to go in here. Alright. In fact, let's just fill this in. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, and also 7. But those aren't 6. Those aren't 7. That's not an 8 or a 2 or a 4. Oh, so it's a 6. Brilliant. Good. In fact, that must mean that's a 9 then. Good. 2, 4, 7, and 8. So that's presumably 2, 4, 7, and 8, but it's not 4, so it's 2. And it's not 2, so it's 7 or 8. Which means that must be, well, it must be the same as that. So that's a 2. That's a 7 or 8. Good. And this is still, oh, this can't be 2 or 4, so that's a 7, 8 pair, so this must be our 2, 4 pair. Is that resolved? Not just yet. This is 5, 6, 7, and 8, but that's not 7 or 6. That's not 5. And I think we're stuck there for now, are we? Maybe. What are these? 4, 5, 8, but the 4 has to go at the bottom, and the 5 at the top, and the 8 in the middle. That tells us that's a 9, 8, that's a 5, that's not an 8, just checking, that must be a 9, so this is a 1 and a 7, I believe, 1 and 7, which we can't yet resolve, can we? What am I missing? I'm missing something, that's not a 5. Okay, no, this is unresolvable at the moment, I think. I don't think I'm missing anything. I think it has to be resolved by this 7, 8 pair down here. So let's continue looking down here. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do the thing that I find fun, even though it looks very daft. The 1 cannot go here, here, or here, so it's there. The 2 cannot go here, here. Okay, so we don't actually know. It could be either of those still. The 3 can't go there or there. And that's all we know for now. The 4 is not there, or there, or there. The 5 is not there, or there, or there, or there. So it's here. Good. In fact, that tells us where the 4 is, doesn't it? It's there. So that resolves that for us, and that tells us that's not a 2, so that is a 2. Let's carry on. The 6 isn't there, or there, or there, or there. That was scrappy. Got there eventually. The 7 isn't there, or there. That's all we know for now, but I have a feeling we're about to find out a bit more. The 8 can't go in there, so it's there, and that must be the 9, so that's a 3, 7 pair. The 9 resolves that, so that's 9, 3, 3, 7, 7, 8, 8, 3, 7, 7, 1, 1, 2, 2, 6, 6, 8. And there we go, that is finished. So yeah, I think that one's relatively approachable. I would say either that or the other one with this rule set about the neighbours would be the one to go for first if you're new to this rule set, which I'm hoping everyone in the world is, if I'm right in thinking it's an original rule set. But yeah, it's a quite neat pattern there, with the diagonal scribbles going down and then straight back up again. You would never see a train do that, but there are lots of things that these trains are doing that you would never see in a real life situation. Bombshell, Sudokus are not real life representations of anything. Right, anyway, let's move on to this next one. So this is the rows and columns variant. So straight away, I'm going to zoom in on this 8 and tell you that this 8 is telling us that either there are 8 train cells in the row, or that there are 8 train cells in the column. Can we have 8 train cells in the row? Well, if we have 8 train cells in the row, then either it comes out here. Oh, no, it can't, because that's a square, and squares are not on the train. In fact, let's just do that now. Let's make these all grey. So it can't come out like that. So this would have to be an end. And can we make that the end of the train? Well, no. We've already said that the last 4 digits on the train can't see each other, so the last 8 certainly can't. That's definitely not going to work. So that is not the case. So we can straight away say that those are all on the train. So that refers to the column, which I think 2 weeks ago I used yellow to indicate. So as we said, neither of these can be the ends, so they must both come out like that. In fact, we can colour all of these grey, which straight away tells us that this 4 must be referring to the row, because there are only 3 potential places for train cells on this column, so that 4 must be referring to the row, which tells us that all of these have to be referring to the column, because none of them can be 4. And now that 2 knocks on to this 3, that tells us that that must be referring to the row. Now this must come out even further, because that, it can't end there, because the last 4 see each other, so that must be it for this row, because there are only 3 train cells in the row. Alright, so it must come out like that, at least. Good, so that is a good start. This, I suppose we can say that it's at least 3, because of the, well, normal Sudoku, so there must be at least 3 train cells in this column, but it could be 5, it could be 6, could be 7. I don't think it can be 8, because we can't make all 3 of those train cells, because that would imply a kind of branching out effect. But in theory it could be up to 7. That's not really the next place to look in terms of our logic, so let's not. Let's instead look at this 4. No, let's not. Let's actually think a little bit harder about this 8. Now this is where it gets a little bit clever. So let's think about the train. What does the train mean? Well, we've got these carriages in ascending order. So let's say that this stretch of the train, we don't know where it is, it's somewhere in the middle of the train. Let's say that the carriages are here, 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 and here. So there are exactly 4 carriages in this bit. So we know that it's going to be either that, or the carriages are there, 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 and then we get kind of 2 half carriages at either end. But let's say that it's 4 carriages, like that. That would mean that there are 4 consecutive numbers that these add up to. I'm not explaining that very well. Let's say that this adds up to x. Or no, let's do an example. Why not? Let's say that that adds up to 8. And then that would be 9, and that would be 10, and that would be 11. 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 equals 38. Plus 8 is 46. So that doesn't work, because we know that these have to add up to 45, not 46. So can we make it work by making it 7, 8, 9, 10? Well, that would add up to 34 plus 8 is 42, and we know these need to add up to 45, so that doesn't work. The other way to think about it is to say that this adds up to x, and then that's x plus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3. Or it works the other way around if we say that this is x, and then that's x plus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3, if we think that this is going to be ascending, going upwards. Either way, we could describe it as x plus 1. Well, these 8 digits as x plus 1 plus x plus 2 plus x plus 3, which adds up to 4x plus 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is 4x plus 6. What do we know about 4x plus 6? Well, 4x must be even because it's 4 times a number, an integer, in fact, and 6 is even. And when you add an even number to an even number, it's even. And when you add an even number to 8, it stays even. So there is no way that this can add up to 45. So we know the carriages must not be there, 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 and there. So instead, they must be there, 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 and then 2 half carriages here. We can actually go further than that. We can ask, what do these add up to? Now this can end up being a little bit trial and error. I'll help out a bit. So let's say they add up to 5, 6, and 7. Something like 5, 6, 7. That adds up to 18. That's not enough. We can't have 6 digits in the same 6 different digits adding up to 18, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 adds up to 21. So we know it must be at least 21, which is 6, 7, and 8. Can that work? We'll come back to it. Now let's find our upper limit. So can this be 11, 12, 13? No, because that's 6 digits adding up to 36, which is actually possible, but then these would have to add up to 9, and there's no way to do. We can't make that 8 and then half and half or anything like that. So the upper limit here is 10, 11, and 12. That adds up to 33. That would mean these 3 add up to 12. So in fact, this would have to be a 1 and a 3. Now let's think about that, because that seems like it could work. But let's remember, we're hypothesizing that this is 10, 11, and 12. So that would end up being 13. Or if it's the other way around, 10, 11, 12, and that would end up being 13. But we know that this is a 1 and a 3. So one of these digits is going to have to be in a 2-cell 13 cage. And we know that we can't have a 1 or a 3 in a 13 cage, because then the other digit would have to be 12 or 10, and that's not going to work. So actually 10, 11, 12 doesn't work. And for a similar reason, we can say 6, 7, 8 doesn't work, because 6, 7, and 8, that's up to 21, so it would have to be the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, leaving 7 and 9 over here, but one of these two would end up being the 5, because this is 6, 7, and 8, so at one of the ends it would be a 5 carriage, and we can't have a 7 or a 9 in that 5 carriage, so that doesn't work either. So actually our range is somewhere from a 7, 8, 9 to a 9, 10, 11. So it's either of those, or it's 8, 9, 10, or it's any of those but the other way round. So that's useful information to remember for later. And this puzzle is a little bit of a kind of detective puzzle. The pieces of information that you gather are not necessarily going to be digits in the grid, or options for a cell, or options for where to place a digit within a box or anything like that. They're going to be other types of information, for example, what we've worked out about this column. And it's a bit of a long-winded way to explain all of that, but hopefully you followed all of it, and you agree with me that our options are 7, 8, 9, 8, 9, 10, or 9, 10, 11 for these 3 cages. Alright, now we've got through all of that, let's revisit this 4. We know that this 4 refers to the row. So we've already got 1 train cell in this row, so we need a further 3. So it's either going to be all three of these, or it's going to be two of these in some order, and one of these, just this one. Can this be in the train then? Can it be in the train at all? And now we use the knowledge that this is a carriage. The fact that we worked out this cannot be the arrangement of carriages along this column becomes relevant now, because we know that this is a carriage, so we know this is a start and an end. And if you watched the video 2 weeks ago, you'll know that if we know that, well, if we know where one of the ends is, then we know what square parity the other end is on. And by that, what I mean is if we coloured this whole grid, I'm not going to do the whole grid, but if we checkered this whole grid, then we know, let's just do that for now. Oh, that's really ugly, but it's a temporary thing for an explanation. We know that if this is a start and an end, then the next carriage is going to start on a white cell and end on a black cell, and start on a white cell, end on a black cell, start on a white cell, end on a black cell, and so on. So if this is a start end, then we can continue this with start end, start end, start end. However we do it, start end, start. So that cannot be part of the train if it's connected from this end. That can't be an end of the train if it's connected from this end. So that's quite a clever application of the property that we know that the train starts and ends on different kind of square parities, if you like, because we don't actually know where either of the ends are, but we do know about the square parity because of our logic on this column. So I find that really fascinating and really satisfying. So this, if this is in the train, it must have come from this way. So let's hypothesize that this is something like that. That is as direct as we can make it go. Now, what else do we know about this column? Sorry to come back to it again, but we know that the lowest it can be, or the most extreme it can be, in terms of being towards one end out of the 3 and the 17, is 7, 8, and 9. So let's say that's the 7. So that would be a 6. And then we'd need another 5 cage, 4 cage, 3 cage. I'm not worried about where they're going at the moment, but 5, 4, and 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cells outside of this column. So this, basically what we're saying is that from this column, the train needs to go at least a further 7 cells. So let's say 7 here, plus 8 here, that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. That's it. That's all of them. That is all of the train. We cannot do any wiggles or any extra bits of train. It will not work. So it must be, well, if this is part of the train, it must come from this end, and it must come directly from this end. So we can't do any more wiggles. This becomes a problem because of something else that I should have already been through. So just hold that thought a second. I'll leave it on the screen for a moment. It's to do with this one clue, which you may have spotted earlier. This one clue tells us that there is only one train cell in this column, which means that we can only pass through this column once, which means that in order to satisfy this 2 clue, i.e. get 2 train cells in this column, we do need to do a bit of a wiggle. We can't just pass straight through here and then pass through it again somewhere else, because, well, we can only pass through this column once because of that clue. So when we get to here, we do need to wiggle. We do need to do some extra movement, so we cannot go directly here. So going directly here does not work, so this cannot be part of our train from this branch. And it can't be part of our train from this branch because of the whole square parity thing that we explained. So this does not work. This cannot be in. So these 3 are all in the train. and because it must go something like that, or that, or that, or that, these two can't be in either. Alright, that was a little bit of a long-winded way of getting through there, and there was a lot that I had to explain on my way. But yes, this is something that I should have talked about earlier. This column can only be passed through once. So when we get to this column, it must be part of the one and only branch that gets through this column. And that actually tells us something about this 4. It tells us that we can't have one or both of these in, and 1 or 2 or 3 of these in. We can't visit both this area and this area because we can only pass through this 1 column either above the 1 or below the 1. So we can have a maximum of 3 in this column, which tells us that this refers to the row, which is useful. We've already got 1 in this row. So we need a further 3. Right, good, okay. This is where I get a little bit rusty on the solution. I haven't actually been through this solution for a week or so. So I'm going to try and blag my way through it, but I might have to resort to a bit of post-editing. We will have to see. Okay, so let's do a little experiment. Let's ask ourselves, can we get to either of these 2 cells? Well, if we do, we know we need a little wiggle in this column, so it would need to be something like that, and it can't possibly visit this bit again, so this would have to be an end, so it would have to do something like that, or that, and that's just not going to work because then the end of the train would have 4 cells all seeing each other within the same box. So that's not going to work, so neither of those can be in. So now we can say that if the train visits this area, so if it passes through this column up here and visits here, then it's going to end as the 2 in this column. So let's work out if it's this branch that ends over here, which cell is it going to end on? So start, finish, start, finish, start, finish, start, finish. So it would have to end there. It couldn't end on either of those because they'd be the wrong square parity. So let's imagine that it goes down here to satisfy the 2, and then across like that, and then across like that, and then along here does that. Now that breaks because of something else that I've just remembered that I haven't yet explained. Have I? Does that? Okay, I'll come back to that. So that is potentially possible, we think. Alright, let's just have a look at this row again, this 4 clue. Can we not have either of those in? So can we do basically what we just did and have this dip into here and then come back out again somehow? That would mean that both of those are out, which means these have to be in. Can that be in? Well, it would have to be an end because it can't get anywhere else. So it would have to be this end because this end is blocked up here. And can it be this end? Well, we know that this is a start, finish, start, finish, start, finish, start. So no, that doesn't work. So, whoops. We know that at least one of these has to be in. So that hypothetical situation over here of doing that is just not going to work. Doing that is not going to work because that would mean that both of those would not be on the train, and then that breaks for the reason that we just described because of this 4 forcing those all to be train cells. Yeah, it just all breaks. That's not going to work, so it can't do that. Can it do that? Well, if it does, let's say that's in. Can this be the low end? Obviously not, because it can't be a 1-2 pair. And can it be the high end? Well, if it is, it's an 8-9 pair, and in fact that becomes the 9, and that becomes the 8, and that has to be a 7-9 pair to be a 16, and oh dear, it clashes. So it doesn't do that either. So what that tells us is that this branch cannot end over here. And we know that it can't end over here and not visit this column, because this 2 needs to be satisfied by a branch that has just been through this column, if that makes any sense. So if this branch is ending up here, it has to end before this column. So it would have to, like, we know it can't dip into there and back out again. It would have to just not touch this bit at all. This bit would have to go up here, and then this would have to end somehow without touching this area, or this area, because it can't join into the onto the other bit of the train. So yes, to be clear, I am hypothesizing that this branch of the train does not go into here, and instead finishes in this area. Can it be done? And the answer is no, because we need at least another 7 cells. So let's cram these as tightly as possible. Is that 7? No, that's 8 actually. So it would be something like that. But that means the last 4 all see each other. Or if we do it differently, can we do it differently? Something like that. But then again, the last 4 all see each other. So there is no way to cram in an ending to this branch all into this area without visiting this area, but we've just proven that it can't visit this area, so this doesn't end up here basically. So this does connect either like that or like that. Can it be that way round? Well, if it was, let's do a little bit more trial and error. So if it does go this way round, I'm going to type it in. So let's paint it in, see what happens when we do something like that. So start finish, start finish, start finish, start finish, start finish. So it either finishes there or carries on a little bit, but we know that this would end up being not in because it can't be orthogonally adjacent. So and we know that one of these 2 has to be in, so that would end up being in. Can both of these be in? No, because, well, this one tells us that it passes through like that. It can't do anything like that, or it certainly can't turn back on itself or anything like that. So they can't both be in, so that would have to be in. So we would need one of these to be in. So it would have to be something like that. Right, and it's at this point where I think we just count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. So that does actually work. So why doesn't that work? I remember why it doesn't work. So this doesn't work, and this is quite bifurcatory, and I think there is an easier way of doing this. I'm not 100% sure. It's all going to end up being a little bit trial and error anyway. But yeah, this doesn't work because neither of the ends could then be the low end. This would have to be the high end because it shares a box. Well, that would have to be an end, first of all, and it would have to be the high end. End because it can't go anywhere else, and it would have to be the high end because it can't have a 1 or a 2 in it. And this would also have to be the high end because that second carriage in would have to be a 1-3 pair if it was the low end, and that breaks because of that. So all of this breaks. So what that tells us eventually is that this branch connects up with here via here. So can it visit over here and turn back on itself? No, it can't. So there's no way it's going past here. This whole area is just closed off. And there are other ways that you can approach that. I feel like I've approached it in quite a scrappy way. But also I do know from memory, having solved this before a couple of weeks ago, however you rule out this whole area, it does end up being a little bit trial and error-y, bifurcatory. So it's Perhaps not ideal unless there is a part of the solution that I've missed out, but hopefully you followed everything that I went through, and you're able to see that this is indeed correct so far. So now, is this an end? It could be, because start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end. That is theoretically possible, except it's not, because that would mean that this is not in and this is also not in, and we've already proven that that cannot be the case, so that must be in. In fact, we can colour that grey as well. Can that be in? If that is in, then what do we get? Well, it has to be coming from this branch, because start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end. So that would be the correct square parity for this branch. So it would be something like that, and then it would be something like this. It would have to go along here, and it would somehow, in order to satisfy this for clue, the for row clue, we would need to get to this cell. And there's no way of doing that without either breaking the 1 or the 2, or it all just breaks. So that's not going to be in anymore. That can't be in. And now finally we can complete this for row, because there are 2 remaining train cells that we need to put in and only 2 spaces left. So that in fact completes this 1 column. So that's all done now. This, because it's orthogonally adjacent to there, can't be in. In order to complete this 2, we need that to be in, and that does indeed finish the 2. So that's finished. Now we've got start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end, start, end. So that could be an end, or it's another carriage up to there, but that can never be in. And now what happens? Well, let's have a look at how many more carriages we need. How many carriages have we got so far? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We need another 5. We can fit in a potential 1 more over here, 2 more over here if we do that. And how many more can we fit in over here? Can we fit in 3? 1, 2, 3. Yes, we can. Or 1, 2, 3. Or 1, 2, 3. Those are all possible. Those are all fine. So we can fit in potentially 3 more over here. So there are 6 possible carriages left that we can add in. So one of these 3 areas will have 1 fewer than its maximum possible number of carriages fitting into it, and the others will all be maximised. That's a really convoluted way of saying it, but yes, this is either 0 or 1. This is either 1 or 2 carriages in here, and this has got to be, therefore, either 2 or 3 carriages in here. Can it be 2 carriages? Well, if it's 2 carriages, let's say this is the low end. In fact, we can prove it is the low end, because whether this is the second carriage in or the first carriage in, if that's the end, it has to be the high end. It can't have a 1 in it because there's a 1 just here. So this has to be the high end over here. So this has to be the low end. So can we only have 2 carriages in this area? If we do, then those carriages will be the 3 and the 4, making this the 5, 6 and 7. So that totals 18. 5 plus 6 plus 7, it totals 18, but we know that those 6 digits are all different, so they have to be at least 21. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 adds up to 21. So we can't have them being 5, 6 and 7. They must be 6, 7 and 8. So we do indeed have 3 more carriages in here. In fact, actually, we can say straight off the bat that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And this is 7, 8 and 9. And now that we know that, this can't be in the next cage along. Well, these add up to 8, these add up to 7, these add up to 6. So I suppose this isn't 6 or 3, this isn't 4, and it can't be 1 either because it can't be a 1, 7. So this is 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 4, but it can't be that. So that breaks. In fact, what is this? It's 1, 2, 5 or no, yeah, 1. It's 1 and 6 or 2 and 5. But if it's 2 and 5, then that stops both of those, and it also stops both of those. So it can't be that. It must be 1 and 6, which means this can't be 2 and 6. So it's 3 and 5, and this must be 2 and 4. So we're making some progress on the actual numbers, finally, after however long it's been. I've got this, I don't know why I do this, but I've got this thing where I don't want to admit how long I'm taking on my own Sudoku, so I keep the timer paused up here in the top right. So I don't know how long it has been, but we're finally penciling some numbers into the grid. Right, so where does the 5 carriage go? Well, it can't go upwards because that 7, 8 or 9 can't be part of a 5 carriage because it can't be -2, -3 or -4. So it has to come out that way, which means that's not in. So we need to fit in, we said 3 more carriages, that's half of a carriage, so we need 2.5 more carriages or 5 cells. So we could do 1, 2, 3, no, that breaks. 1, 2, 3, no, that breaks. 1, 2, 3, no, that breaks. 3, 4. It's that. Hopefully it's visually obvious, but it has to be that. That's the only way to fit all of that, all of those carriages into that area. So that must be what it is. So now we can really start writing in some numbers because that's a 1, 2 pair, and it's resolved by this 2, 4 pair. So that's a 1, that's a 2. This needs to be 1 and 3, but that 1 tells us that's a 3, that's a 1. This needs to add up to 5 without using a 1, so it's a 2, 3 pair, and that actually is resolved over here. That 2 tells us that's a 4, that's a 2, and that 3 tells us that's a 3, and that's a 5. So these add up to 9, and they can't involve a 3 or a 5 or an 8, so the only option left is 2 and 7. And these add up to 10, and they're not 3 and 7, 2 and 8, or... Oh, they can still be 4 and 6, or 1 and 9. If it's 4 and 6, that must be the 6, and if it's 1 and 9, that must be the 9. So that's a 1 or 4. And then that is a 4 or 9, because if that's 1 and 9, that becomes a 6, so that's a 4. And if that's a 4 and 6, that becomes a 1, so that's a 9. But we know that's part of an 11 carriage because this is 8, 9, 10. So that becomes a 7 or a 2. Let's look elsewhere and come back to this. Alright, so in fact let's have a look at this cell. We know that this clue is telling us how many train cells are in the column. So far we've got 3, so it's a minimum of 3, but we know there's going to be at least 1 more in here to connect this branch to this branch. So, but it can't be 4, so it must be at least 5. Can it be 6? Can these 3 all be in? No, they can't, because that would mean we're branching the train, and that's not allowed. So it must be a 5. So 2 of these must be in. Can it be the outer 2? No, definitely not, because then this branch gets stuck. Can it be the top 2? No, because then again this branch is stuck. It must be the bottom 2. So those are both in, which means these are all in. We now have 28 cells on our train. If you don't trust me, feel free to count, but it just means that these both have to be in. So those are green. Those are part of the train. In fact, that's the other end of our train. That's an 8, 9 pair. That's a 7, 9 pair, which tells us that has to be an 8 and that has to be a 9. These have to add up to 15, but that can't be a 7, 8 or 9, so it must be a 6, so that must be a 9, so that must be a 9, so that must be a 7. These add up to 14 without using a 9, so they must be 6 and 8, which tells us that's a 9 and that's a 1, which tells us that's a 6 and that's a 1, which tells us that's 4. And that's a 7 to complete the 11 cage. That's 12, but it's not 4 and 8 or 7 and 5, so it must be 3 and 9. 3 and 9. These add up to 13, but this is just a 3, 5 pair in the column. No, it's not. It is a 3, 7 pair in the column, but that can't be a 3 because that would mean that's a 10. So that's a 7, then that's a 6, and that's a 3. And that's a 5, so that's why I was thinking of the 3, 5 pair. I knew there was a 3, 5 pair to do with that. Anyway, right, good. Alright, so looking in this box, we need a 1, 4 and 5. The 1 can't go there or there, so it's there, and the 5 tells us that's a 4 and that's a 5. This needs to be 3, 6 and 8, but those are not 6, so that's a 6, so this is a 3, 8 pair, but the 3 tells us that's a 3, that's an 8. In fact, that's 7. It's been pointing down there for a while. So that's an 8, 9 pair, and that's resolved for us nicely. This is where it starts getting a little bit easier. That's a 6 because it's the only thing left in the column. This now is a 2, 5 pair. Can we resolve this 6, 8? No, we can resolve this 7, 2. And that's all done. This now is going to help us. This clue, it hasn't really helped us do too much, to be honest, so far, in terms of what number it is. In terms of the properties of the clue, all that it's really helped with so far is being a kind of block to tell us that the train doesn't go there. So, for example, right at the beginning, we knew that this 8 couldn't be referring to the row because it can't get out like that. So far, it's done very little in terms of the properties of the clue itself. But now it does do something, because we can simply count the number of train cells in the row, which is 3, and the column, which is 2, and say that this has to be a 2 or a 3, but that 3 tells us that it's a 2. So just for completeness' sake, we'll just colour that yellow to make it a column clue, and that's all of our clues done. So from this point onwards, it is just normal Sudoku, which I'm going to try and finish as quickly as I can, he says, scrambling for time. Okay, alright. Let's just fill in some boxes. This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, except those aren't 4s. And the 5 can't go there or there. This is not going to be as helpful as I thought it was going to be, is it? These aren't 6s. Oh, so that does tell us a 6 is there or there, so that's a... no. That's a 6, and that's an 8, which tells us those aren't 8s. But, sorry, let's just finish 7s first. Those aren't 7s. We did those 8s. That's also not an 8, so one of these is an 8. Is that helpful? It tells us there's an 8 there. We'll come back to that. Oh, the 9s can't go in there. And in fact, actually, that gives us a 4, 5, 6, 7 quintuple. In fact, it's a 5, 6, 7 triple. So that's a 4. And this has to be an 8, 9 pair. In this row, we need a 2, which goes there, and a 5 or 6, which goes there. In this row, we need a 5 or 7 along with a 4. The 4 has to go there, and that becomes 5 or 7. Right, what are we missing? Let's have a look at this box, and I'm going to do my favourite thing again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. The 1 does not go in here. It's a silly way to do it, but I love it. The 2s can't go in here. The 3s can't go in here. Oh, does that mean... yes, of course, this is just 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's carry on though. 4 can't go there. 5 can't go there. 6 is already done. 7 can't go there. 8 can't go along the top. And 9 is, as of yet, useless. This 1, 2, 3 though, we can say that's not a 1. We can say that's not a 2. So let's have a look at this box. We need a 1, a 5, 6 or 7 and an 8. Oh, but not a 5. So 1, 6, 7, 8. That's not a 1 or 6. That's not a 7. And that's not an 8. And I'm stalling a little bit. Let's do our trick though. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 1s don't go there. The 3 does not go there. Am I going to get stuck here? 4s don't go there or there. 5, that can't go there. 6 doesn't go there or there or... ah, right, there we go. That's the one. So that has to be a 6. And actually, this reminds me that I think there are ways of proving every other element of this Sudoku without using this clue. So I did actually have an early draft of this puzzle that didn't have this clue in, and I played it through, and we basically got to this stage, and it was cooked. The puzzle had multiple solutions because the 6 could go here. But apparently, just by putting this clue in, forcing it to be a 2, that resolves what is otherwise, at the moment, apparently a completely deadly pattern. So this 2 is a saviour in a kind of normal Sudoku sense. So it's really satisfying that we're able to force that to be a 2 because of the killer on the Orient Express rules. Anyway, where was I? This is a 6. And that tells us that's a 5, that's a 7, that's an 8. This is all starting to fall apart, isn't it? That means that's a 5, 6, 7. This is what, 1 and 6, but that's the 6 and that's the 1. Okay. Let's carry on up here. So what do we get to? 7s can't go there or there. 8 can't go in here or here, so yes, it's forced into here. That's brilliant. And 9 can't go in these columns, and that's all we know so far. But that does give us a 5 there and a 1 there. This is a 3, 7. Well, that's the only place for 4 in the column / box. That means a 4 can only go there in this box. This can't be a 9 because there's an 8, 9 pair in the column, so it's a 7. So that's not a 7. That 5 tells us that's a 5, 2, which tells us that's a 3, 1. That must be a 2. That's that makes that a 9. That makes that a 3, 9, 3, 7. That's a 9. That makes that a 9 and an 8 and an 8 and a 5. So really satisfying from a setter's point of view that just putting that clue in was able to disambiguate a really enormous deadly pattern that would have emerged otherwise. That's good fun, and a nice way to finish the puzzle, I think, even though it does, from the solver's point of view, when you don't know that the existence of that clue is in question because it's just always been there from the solver's point of view, it just seems like normal Sudoku for the last kind of third of the solve. But yeah, from the setter's point of view, that's quite a satisfying little trick there. Good. Anyway, I hope you had fun solving that or watching me solve it, whatever you chose to do. Thank you very much for watching the whole video. Yes, I always feel like there's more I need to say at this point, which is why I end up rambling with these outros for so long. But I think I'll just say thank you once again for watching. If you're feeling generous, please drop a like on the video. And I may well continue. Yeah, that's something interesting to say. I may well continue making more puzzles with this rule set. I'd be interested to see what other possibilities it has. I have found a few other trains that work. It is quite difficult to find a train that works without things clashing and eventually breaking, even if it's not immediately. But there are a few other settings that I've found that are nothing like the ones that I've set so far. So I might try and turn those into puzzles, but at the moment they're just not giving rise to nice enough clues. And that's regardless of whether I make the clues these kind of row column clues or the neighbour clues of the other puzzle. Regardless, it's just not seeming to give rise to nice ones however I set it, but I will probably keep trying. I'll see what else I can do with it, but that will do for now. If you are a keen Sudoku setter and you want to try out this rule set, maybe with a different variation with clues that mean something slightly different, not necessarily the row or the column or the neighbouring cells, but I don't know, the distance to the nearest train cell, that could be an interesting variant. Do let me know how you get on with that, and please send me puzzles to solve. That would be good fun. But otherwise, yes, I will wrap up. I'll stop rambling and wrap up the video. Thanks again once again for watching. It's Christmas Eve, isn't it? I'm recording this advance, so have a lovely Christmas. Hope you get all of the things that you've wanted and you're on Santa's good list. And I will see you again on New Year's Eve for the last Sudoku video of the year. I better make a plan to make it a good one, I suppose. Yes, have a lovely festive period, have a lovely week, and I will see you next Friday.